What's up guys, it's me Kaluchi back with a new video, and today I'll be showing you my guide for Misfortune. So let's dive right in the video, starting off with what a MEV is. It's hard to explain what a MEV is. Well, it's obvious she's an AD carry, or as some people like to play her as a support. But my guide is meant for those who main her as an hyper AD carry. Notice how I said hyper AD carry and not burst. Since the lethality meta has moved on and some changes have been made to Misfortune's Q and R, I find it better to play her as an hyper AD carry. There is only one problem. Other AD carries perform the hyper carry role better than her. So what makes her so good? Well, with my build, I will show you why she can be so effective early, mid and late game. The current meta exists, like I said, of hyper carries. Now if I take a look at the statistics on some sites, you will see that she performs better in lower elos. This has two reasons. One, she's easy to play. The second reason is, the higher the elo, the more people know how to play against her. That aside, Misfortune fits perfectly in the current meta, and I don't think she'll move a lot from her spot in the current patches. Let's talk about her strengths and weaknesses, or pros and cons. Misfortune has an insane laning phase, where she can zone out most other AD carries, thanks to her Q. Her ult deals a lot of damage, but is more used as a zoning ability in our case. Besides that, she also has a nice attack and movement speed steroid. Also, farming is easier thanks to her passive. Moving on to her weaknesses, one of her biggest weaknesses is her lack of mobility. Sure, she has her W, but that buff gets negated when she is damaged, so in a team fight it's of no use. If you get caught, you'll probably die. That's why in most cases it's best just to deal as much damage as possible, if you're going to die anyway. Her other con, and this is more because of my strange build, is that she is not that great if she falls off early game. You can catch up late if you farm enough, but if you lose your lane early, you'll probably lose a lot of pressure, which may lead in the enemy snowballing. So let's talk about her skills. Misfortune doesn't have a crazy kit, that's very complicated, but it's nice to know what they do. Her passive love tap makes it so that each unique basic attack hit will deal extra damage. You can't proc this twice on the same enemy without hitting another target first. Therefore, it's smart to switch aggro in some cases. For example, when you're pushing the lane, it's smarter to hit 2 minions instead of focusing one down. Minions receive 50% of the damage, by the way. Also, this passive will reduce your cooldown of your E, which we will talk about later. Her Q, Double Up, is her main damaging ability and it's pretty easy to use, but it's important to master this. A good Misfortune can make her opponent's life hell, so experiment a lot with this. Your Q can bounce to a second target. This target will receive extra damage when you kill your first targeted opponent, so try to set things up in such a manner that your first target is going to die. The first target doesn't necessarily have to die. Also, it can critically strike, which helps you in your hyper carry build. The W gives passive movement speed when out of combat. When you are damaged, this passive will go away. Upon activating your W, you will gain the maximum amount of movement speed and gain an attack speed steroid, all based on your skill level. The cooldown is reduced by your passive by 2 seconds, so every time you hit your passive love tap, this cooldown will be reduced by 2 seconds. Her E, Make It Rain, deals damage to a targeted area for a few seconds and slowing all enemies hit by it. It's handy to chase or run away from champions. Back in the day, you wanted to max this first with Thunderlords, because it has a good amount of poke. And right now you want to max this as last, because we're going for the hyper carry build. Her R, Bullet Time. This ultimate is what you can call an ultimate. No one, and I mean no one, wants to get hit by this. Even tanks will move out of the way since this ult deals so much damage. Especially if you hit multiple targets for a long duration. Use the skill to zone people off or just blow them up. Your choice. I usually use this depending on the situation. So here's the order in which you want to max your skills. Q obviously for your damage, your main damaging ability. Your W for the attack speed steroid. Afterwards you want to max your E because it gives you a nice amount of slow, and of course max your ult whenever it's possible for pretty obvious reasons. So moving on to the runes. Lately I've been trying some new runes. These runes are from Reckless. Yes, Reckless from Fnatic. Well, most of it is. I twisted it a little bit from my own playstyle. This build gives insane attack speed, which is needed for us hyper AD carries, and some lifesteal and damage. If you want to go for a more standard AD carry rune page like this one, that's fine as well. I'd say try both out and see which one works best. For Masteries, I also have two ways, standard one and my new one. This page is my new one, which complements our lifesteal rune. Also it gives a good amount of sustain and damage. The second page is the standard one with no lifesteal. It's meant for full damage and mostly for the burst part of Misfortune. I'd prefer the first one more because we're going for a hyper carry build and the attack speed and lifesteal is much needed. So let's move on to the moment you've all been waiting for, the item build. We start off with Doran's Blade if the enemy doesn't have a lot of poke, otherwise take Doran's Shield. Then we rush 2 BF swords as soon as possible. The reason why we rush 2 BF swords is to complement our Q damage, which will be insane if we get 2 of them. This build also works on Draven, well not the whole build but the rushing 2 BF sword build. After your 2 BFs, you want to rush your Infinity Edge. Of course, buy your boots whenever it's possible as well. Oh, by the way, attack speed boots. Infinity Edge procs your Q. Your Q can crit and it applies on hit effects. So your Q will deal bonus damage plus the extra bonus damage of the EA passive. After this, you want some attack speed, because in the end we are going for that hyper carry. My recommendation would be Static Shift or Rapid Fire Cannon. Static is better at the moment, but Rapid Fire Cannon still has that nice range. So if you need to start over with some nice range, I would go for Rapid Fire Cannon, and in all other cases I would go for Static Shift. It deals more damage and it's AoE. Also because Misfortune can't push the lanes very fast, it's handy to have an item like Static Shift which will help you push very fast. For your third item, you want Essence Reaver. This gives a nice amount of critical strike and attack damage. By now, if you have these 3 items, you will have around 70% critical strike and a lot of attack speed. After these 3 items, build according to the game. If you get one shot by an assassin, build Guardian's Angel. If they have a lot of AP burst, build more of the Mortius. If they have a lot of tanks, obviously go for that Last Whisper. If they have a lot of sustain, go for Mortal Reminder, and so on and so on. Moving on to the matchups. I will name 3 AD carries for each part, so 3 counters and 3 Sheik counters. Now before all of you get butthurt about which champion counters who, this is my opinion, and also when you outplay any player, it has nothing to do with the matchup, but more about your own skill. Leave that out. So in my opinion, Misfortune has a hard time dealing with Tristana, Sivir and Draven. Draven just outtrades her very hard. Sivir can block your Q. Tristana has a very good all-in, where she can all-in you with her ultimate that disrupts your ultimate. Some easier matchups would be against all the burst damage dealers, like Ezreal, Varus, Jhin. You'll most likely outtrade them if positioned correctly. There are of course a lot more champions where Misfortune performs well, but you get the idea. So let's move on to the gameplay. So in the gameplay part, I will show you parts from the laning phase and from the team fighting as well. They are not in any order, but it's obviously spot out what's the laning phase and what's not. So enjoy. So let's first off start with this first clip. Here you can see me trading against Ezreal and Thresh. I have the support Morgana. As you might know, Morgana's stun is endless, so if anyone is caught with that stun, he is most likely to die. So what I'm looking for right now in this laning phase is, well actually in any laning phase when I'm in Misfortune, I want them to position in such a manner that I can hit them with my Q while they are behind a minion. As you can see, my minion almost dies here. I can see it and Ezreal's off position. I use my Q, get a nice crit. Afterwards Morgana gets a stun on him and I flash in for the kill. And that's what you want to do with MF. You just want to punish them as hard as possible for the smallest mistakes. So in this second clip, as you can see, we're sieging the tier 1 tower in bottom lane. I have to watch out for Jarvan's engage, so I'm standing a little bit back. Also, Karthus just flashes in on us, which is actually not smart. Anyways, he dies very fast. He uses ultimate, but we use redemption, so that gets negated. Then we siege once again with the numbers advantage. I still have to look out for Jarvan. As you can see, he goes in on me, and I flash out of his ultimate. Luckily for me. Then I pop my ultimate because I see 3 of them in a row. Janna seems to survive but dies right after. And we keep on sieging the tower here. Speed this up for a bit. Alright, then we move back and we start kiting. Because you have the DPS build, you don't have to back off after your initial burst. So I keep on kiting and kill them with my DPS. Are you guys ready for a pentakill? Let's go. So I'm standing back like always because I'm Misfortune. I have no mobility, I have to watch out. I just let my team engage and just follow up. As you can see, I'm moving up here, trying to burst down Kha'Zix, then use my ultimate from a far range. It's not the best ultimate, but it's enough to zone Kha'Zix out of the team fight and kill him eventually. Then I get hooked by Thresh, which makes me stop for a little bit. But I already have my triple kill and move on for my Quadra, and Ezreal flashes out piece of shit that he is. But that does not matter for my rapid fire cannon, and I end up getting the pentakill here. Are you guys ready for the next pentakill? Hell yeah. I don't know why, but I make so much pentakills with Misfortune. Anyways, I start off with using my ultimate because they are off position and I see 3 enemies next to each other. They all scatter immediately because, like I said, nobody wants to get hit by it. I already picked up 2 kills and we're now chasing down the Kazakhs. And we managed to catch him. Well, he has Guardian's Angel, so he won't die immediately. Meanwhile, I'll take Oriana out and the Kazakhs. Then Riven comes. I am not kiting here because I didn't think it was that useful because I already used everything. But in the end, she dies, I die as well, but I get the penta. So I'ma say worth. So in this last clip, I will show you how I outplay Riven and Thresh. As you can see, I use my ultimate directly to zone Riven out. Then Morgana gets a free stun on Thresh because of that. Riven goes in, she dies immediately, and afterwards I pick Thresh up as well. Thank you guys for watching this guide of mine. Thumbs up if you think it was useful, and if you learned something from it, thumbs down if it was completely bullshit. Have a nice day and I'll catch you guys next time.